Kristen Adolfi is a researcher, a presenter, and co-founder of Lost World Museum, an educational ministry dedicated to exploring history through a biblical worldview. For over 20 years, she has studied evidence connected to the pre-flood world, ancient civilizations, human origins, and the extraordinary capabilities of the human mind. What began as a personal fascination became a lifelong pursuit, understanding how Scripture, history, and the fossil record fit together to reveal God's original plan for humanity. She considers herself a tour guide through history, showcasing God's faithfulness so we can trust Him through the unprecedented times the Bible says are coming to the world as the battle between good and evil comes to a final end. Kristen, thank you for being here today. The time is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. So yes, like she said, my name's Kristen, and my husband and I have studied all these topics for many, many years. It's just terribly addicting. You can't help but you start looking into fossils and all that stuff, and off you go. You know, like everybody knows dinosaurs were big, but when you find out dragonflies from wingtip to wingtip were 28 inches across and 8.5 foot long millipedes, and I mean, you name it, it's like that was it. I was hooked. So anyway, one of my questions was, well, if everything in the pre-flood world or in the fossil record was giant, I mean, I could go on, beavers and, horsetail plants, those ones those spiky looking ones that you grow in New York about 30 inches, 150 feet in the fossil record. Well, it got me curious, what exactly were humans like? What can we know? I mean, I'm very much a skeptic. I want all primary resources. In fact, I use all evolutionary resources. I just think that they make more sense from a biblical worldview. So I'm very particular on my sources. But again, I thought, if everything's been dumbing down, if the pre-flood world had a stronger electromagnetic field, a better soil quality, higher oxygen, higher air pressure, all of these things that supported life at a magnificent level. I mean, I don't think you could keep 70-ton, 110-foot-long dinosaurs, I don't think you could feed them on the stuff we've got today. I mean, even in the Amazon, I think it would be tough. Elephants, they eat a good portion of the day just to maintain their body weight. If you're talking about a 70-ton animal, you're not going to do it in today's world. So what does that mean for humans? So I set about gathering what I could, and I discovered really quickly that savants and prodigies were one really good glimpse into what we were like, because those abilities, and they're not just, maybe some art and music and math or whatever, when you start really pulling them all together and looking at the picture that it gives you, it's fascinating. So this is one of my all-time favorite topics that you're going to get today. And it's on how the mind was. So we're going to start off with part 7. I've got 52. I sweep through history from a biblical standpoint, from the war in heaven all the way down through history to the attack on the New Jerusalem and Revelation that ends this whole thing. So I deal with creation, the pre-flood world, the flood itself, the first 1,000 years post-flood, the apostasy, the ice age, all of those different things. And I go all the way through history, but this is the one, number 7 from the pre-flood world. So Genesis 1:26 says, "Let us make man in our image and in our likeness." Well, I don't think most people, not even Christians, I don't think have had a real good idea of what this means when it says good, and very good. I think evolution has influenced us enough that we sort of, brought into our worldview this idea that we are coming from cavemen. I mean, Christians don't believe the full caveman theory, but I think we've got some of that mixed in our worldview. So we've been getting smarter through the centuries. After today, this is going to be an absolute understatement that we were tall, strong, magnificent, and just stunningly beautiful. So let's go to the next one. Now, this guy, Jedediah Buxton, he was probably an autistic savant, and he was born in 1707. And he's about as far back as I go because I prefer more recent records. But this guy was so well known and so well documented that I felt that he was worth including. And he couldn't write. He was obsessed with numbers and counted steps of the people at dances and like words at play. It's a classic, autistic savant type stuff. But he was tested by the Royal Society in 1754, and he was able to calculate up to 39 numbers. So I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty impressive. And it is true. 1 in 10 savants or autistic people have a splinter skill. That means that although they may not be able to tie their shoes and function fully on their own, they might have an ability so striking that it would just shock you, something that normal people would have to study for many years. So, but again, I prefer more recent things. But let's go to this one more before we hit the more recent stuff. Thomas Fuller. And I think he was more of a prodigy. I think he was a normal functioning person. He was born in 1710, and he was brought to America as a slave, and he was known all over the eastern seaboard. When he was 70 years old, there was 2 guys that came and wanted to test him. So they asked him how many seconds in a year and a half, and he correctly answered in about 2 minutes. He said 47,304,000. Then he was asked how many seconds a man has lived that is 70 years, 17 days, and 12 hours, and he answered correctly in a minute and a half, 2,210,500,800. Well, one of the guys says, you're wrong, until Thomas Fuller reminded him, you forgot about leap years. So set him straight. So again, I mean, we're talking astounding abilities without a calculator, without math, without using paper and pen. We're just talking freak level of abilities. And I'm hoping by the end, you're going to have a new appreciation for how magnificent you are. All right, Truman Henry Safford, another prodigy. He was born in 1836 in Vermont, and when he was 9 years old, he was asked by a priest to multiply that number by itself. You know how it says 365, like there's 6 groups of them? So that whole number by itself. And in less than a minute, he came up with the correct number without paper, and that's the big long blue number underneath of it. And he developed a new method for calculating moon rising and setting that took 1/4 of the time. He also became the 2nd director of Hopkins Observatory. So again, well documented. All right, let's go to one of my favorites. Shakuntala Devi, again, a prodigy. She was born in 1929, and her father her father was a trapeze artist, but he used her to amaze crowds from a very young age. From 6 years on, she was doing this. And in 1977, she beat a computer twice. I mean, this was a supercomputer. Now, I get it. Computers have sped up through the years, but we're still talking about a computer, something that is still faster than the human mind. So she beat the computer twice. The first she did was the cube root of 188,132,517. Now, if you're not familiar with cube root, I mean, I'm lucky I know what a cube root is. I'm lucky I can do square roots. But if you're not familiar with it, the answer is 573. So she took 50 seconds to do that in her head. Oh, then she took, the next one was 50 seconds in her head. It was 23rd root of a 201-digit number. My mind gets to the point where I don't even understand what that means. 23, no, can't go there. So that's that big long green number. That's what she did in 50 seconds, 50 seconds. No calculator, no computer. And a lot of these people will describe it as the numbers just come to them. It's not like they're doing tricks. There are tricks you can do to do math. And so there are people that can do some of those tricks. But many of the people that are actually savants and prodigies will tell you the numbers just show up in their mind. They're not figuring it out. It's just coming. In 1980, she multiplied that big long number by that big long number in 28 seconds. So again, just jaw-dropping. All right, next one is Solomon Cherysevsky. He was born in Russia in 1886, And he was studied by a famous, I think it was a neuroscientist, anyway, it was named Luria. And he wrote a book about him, The Mind of a Mnemonist. He couldn't find an edge to his memory. So they would test him every way possible. And it didn't matter what they gave him long lists of numbers or poems, the foreign languages, matrices of different kinds. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what they gave him. He would give them to you forward and backward, even 10, 20 years later. It was funny because when he was young, he didn't know other people were different than him. So his first clue, he was attending a work meeting. It was at a newspaper, and he got reprimanded by his boss for not taking notes. And he looks at his boss, and he's like, well, why would I take notes? Well, so you can remember what I said. And he's like, what? And so he started repeating back word for word the guy's speech. And they're all like, wait, how are you doing that? You mean you can't? Yeah, he did not know other people couldn't do that. So anyway, one of the things, though, that made him different is synesthesia. And if you go to the next slide, I will kind of use this as an example. Synesthesia is where you have one or more senses cross-wired. And that doesn't mean just the 5 typical ones that you're familiar with, like sight and sound and smell and whatnot. You can have color and taste intermixed with numbers. Like a number might have a certain taste to it. The best way I can describe it is there was this guy, in fact, the guy that studied this and started writing on it, he was at a party. What got him interested in it, he was neuropsychologist or scientist or whatever. He was at a party, and this guy, the host, was stirring the chicken cacciatore, and he tasted it, and he mumbled to himself, still too pointy. And of course, as somebody that studies the human brain, he was like, what did you say? And the guy flushed red because he'd learned to keep his mouth shut about, obviously, these things that he felt that other people didn't. Well, he got into studying this stuff and started publishing articles in the newspaper. Pretty quick, people were writing in going, you mean I'm not crazy? And some of them would say, my husband has the most delicious caramel, crunchy, brown voice. So she had taste, texture, color, all mixed in. And some of you have it and don't know it, because 1 in 20 are the stats. 1 in 20 of you have something cross-wired, but because you've perceived the world all your life that way, you may not know somebody else doesn't. So you might have a more minor version of it. I do actually have it. When I finally started reading on this stuff, I finally understood some of the quirks about me. But sounds can make me jump like crazy, and I thought it was just because I was jumpy, but I didn't realize that for me, sound has shape. So it would drive me crazy when, my husband would be, and it's worse when you're tired or relaxed, kind of laying down, resting. When somebody, say for example, is typing, I feel that in my personal space as if somebody's literally doing it to me. So sound has shape to me. Like I could tell you what shape something is, just like if you did a sound and didn't let me see it, I could tell you what shape it is. It has a shape to me. Anyway, so some of you have that, but it could be any version of this. So for Solomon, he one of the ones that he mentioned, the stories he mentioned, was he went to get ice cream at this little ice cream truck. And he asked her what kind of ice cream she had, and she said fruit ice cream. But it came out to him, he perceived it as a pile of coals, of black cinders that just came bursting out of her mouth. And he couldn't buy ice cream from her, so he just went away without ice cream. So anyway, having your senses cross-wired like that does give you an advantage to be able to remember things because you've got more attachments. Instead of just having to memorize an isolated thing, it's going to be easier to remember it. I'll give you another example in a minute. Let's go to the next one, though. Charles Spurgeon, there's various people that you're probably familiar with, but it was very interesting because, Spurgeon stated that someone gave him a book to read Sunday afternoon before supper, and then at supper he asked him if he had a chance to look at it, and he, of course, says, he'd read it. And the guy was like incredulous and didn't believe him. And so Spurgeon asked him to give him a page number in the book, and he started to recite it from memory. So some people, that's just how it is. But he was described as a voracious reader with extraordinary memory after just a single reading. All right, next to C.S. Lewis. And Lewis, again, very similar. He was one of the best read men in his generation. And his student, Derek Brewer, said that you could quote a line from any, like, say, Milton's epic Paradise Lost, and Lewis would continue reciting the poem from memory from just that point onward. Didn't matter where in the poem it was. And again, he was asked to select a book from the shelf and title, page, and number, and as soon as he did that, he would just start reciting. Same thing. All right, Leslie Lemke. We're going to get into music for a minute. Give you a few examples. He was born in 1952, and he couldn't walk until he was 15. He couldn't see. His IQ was 58. The kid, it's amazing that the woman is a saint that took this guy in and raised him. But he played flawlessly after hearing it only once, very common with musical savants, and was playing music and singing when he still couldn't talk. And very interestingly, he had cerebral palsy, so he had spasticity, so he couldn't even feed himself, but it would disappear when he tried to play the piano. It's smooth and fluid, totally normal. So anyway, I think he was the one also that came out and found him playing when he was like, they bought a keyboard and they found him playing out in the living room, and they thought it was the TV, they left it on. Anyway, there's documentaries on all these people, so if you want to get online, typically YouTube, you can watch some of these. All right, Derek Pavaricini. He's funny. He likes to entertain. He's autistic savant, and again, born 1979. He has absolute pitch, which that means you can play a note and he'll know exactly what it is. He doesn't have to guess. He's not going to come in at the wrong one. He started playing when he was 2, first concert is 7, and he was playing with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra at age 9. And there's a fascinating TED Talk that showcases some of his abilities. Let's go to the next one. I'll play just a little, hopefully this will play this. So let's, actually, before we go on to the next one, I remember seeing a clip where he was playing, they had 2 pianos back to back, and he was playing 2 different things, one hand with one piano and one hand on the other piano. Sorry, I can't play one. So anyway, pretty fascinating. Let's go to the next one. Ellen Bordeaux. She's featured in Islands of Genius by Dr. Daryl Treffer. He's the world's leading, I think he just passed away, he's the world's leading authority on savants and prodigies. Amazing man. Anyway, she was a blind autistic savant that played anything perfectly after hearing it once. And what interestingly, she could transpose it into, like, transpose rock and roll into waltz or 3-time into jazz into classical. It doesn't matter. You could just, like, switch it all up to any kind. And when she was younger, it's hard to find something good on her. Like, they only had a little bit on YouTube from her in her older years. But when she was younger, she could replicate instruments and voices and stuff, very like a mimic, but only better, like way better. But what I found most interesting, because again, I want to fill in the blanks. I don't want to know just if somebody's got great music or art or abilities or whatever. I would like to know what all of the abilities are. And I found it interesting that she had perfect passing of time. So she would go and she would sit down at the TV and turn it on without a clock telling her. She would turn it on at the exact moment when her show was coming on that she wanted to watch. So she just was internally tracking that. It's just one of the many abilities that some people have. I'm actually a little bit good at the tracking of time, but nothing like that. Anyway, This next one, I'm going to play a clip too on Ben Underwood. Unfortunately, this kid passed away at 16. He lost his eyes to cancer, and so he taught himself to see basically using echolocation, making little chirping noises that would tell him, where things are. And you'll see that in here. But it gives you a really amazing idea. What are some of the odd things that we, can do?
Ben Underwood is blind. Both eyes were removed when he was 3, leaving him with no vision at all. So how on earth does Ben do this? And this? And even this?
I don't think I've ever come across somebody like Ben. He was quite unique.
Ben lost his eyes to cancer, but unbelievably, he's taught himself to see with sound.
If he chooses to go out there and ride that bicycle, let him ride the bicycle. It's got to be very smart. Somewhere in there, it's a little genius going on. I don't consider myself boring. Ain't nothing wrong with me.
Ben uses many common aids for the blind, like speaking software for the computer, so he can jot down his rap lyrics. He's also written a book and does schoolwork on a high-tech braille writer. But what's unusual, what's truly unique, is what he doesn't use. Ben has no guide dog and never uses a white cane. He's not even using his hands. Instead, he sees with sound. He makes a sharp click which bounces back off nearby objects. Amazingly, Ben's ears pick up the echoes and he can precisely locate where things are. Ben is the only person in the world who sees using nothing but echolocation.
He's not the only person anymore. There is somebody else online. You can look at a TED Talk on him. But they tested him. The doctors wanted to see what he could differentiate between. And he could tell if something was like a column, a garbage can, a car, a fire hydrant. Like he could, they tested the width of the columns and things, because they wanted to see just exactly what was he capable of seeing. So anyway, pretty amazing. All right, let's go on to the next one. Now, Kim Peek was a mega savant. You may have seen him in the movie Rain Man. If you haven't watched that, that was based on his life. And he had 15 core areas. So instead of having one or two, areas, he had 15 areas. NASA tested him. He had no corpus callosum. So that thing that connects the two hemispheres of your brain, he did not have that, which probably caused his brain to be wired differently. But it's not, whether that's the sole cause of his, abilities, we don't know. But I think it, again, gives you a really good glimpse into what would it be like if you had lots of abilities and just lots of areas instead of just one or two. So let's go on to the next one and we'll play that clip.
He remembers everything he's ever read. He can tell you every city in the United States, its highways and its area codes and its zip codes and its television stations and its counties and when it was made a state. The history of any country, all the rulers and when they served, presidents of this country, when they were born, their wives, their families, all of NASA's accomplishments, when they went up, when they came down, what they're doing. He can talk to you about the Bible. He can quote scriptures. He can tell you anything about it you want to ask him about. It seems like everything he reads, he maintains. At 9 months, the neuropsychiatrist said he's severely mentally retarded. He will never be able to learn. You should put him in an institution, forget about him.
But Kim was reading encyclopedias by age 4 and had finished the high school curriculum by 14.
Goodbye, old pain. I'm a leaving Cheyenne. You know that?
How fast can he read?
He reads a page that you and I would read in 3 minutes approximately. It takes him about 8 to 10 seconds. He reads the left page with the left eye, right page with the right eye, and remembers about 98% of it.
One page with one eye, the other page with the other eye. Sorry, but that's crazy. And I find it fascinating that there's all, but I mean, his father loves him, and instead of putting him in an institution, he's had an amazing life. They've traveled all over and done all kinds of presentations together. So very, very interesting man. In fact, from 18 months onward, when he finished a book, finished reading it, he would put it upside down on the shelf, and he did that all his life. That was his habit. He had just thousands of books that he had memorized. Okay, so let's see, next. The guy that you just saw in that video with him, the young man, that is this guy, Daniel Tammet. He has Asperger's, or what they previously called Asperger's. And he has that synesthesia stuff. So for him, every integer up to 10,000 has its own shape, color, and feel. So like number 4 is timid like him, 37 is lumpy like oatmeal, and 111 is shiny and bright. So he's got color and texture and stuff attached to numbers. So it's incredibly easy for him to remember those things because, again, the more attachments you have, it's less like this isolated, okay, just memorize this list of things. I mean, it's easier for him because of that. Again, documentaries all online are fun to watch on him. He held the European record. I mean, it's actually much greater now, but he did hold the European record at one point for reciting pi from memory. He did 22,514 places. He speaks English, Finnish, French, German, Lithuanian, Esperanto, Spanish, Romanian, Icelandic, and Welsh. He actually learned Icelandic in 1 week. It's one of the hardest languages out there. He learned it in 1 week and was interviewed on national television at the end of the week. Fascinating. You can watch that. All right, next one is Adhara Perez. And they just thought she was a weirdo. And that's the problem. Often kids are labeled weirdo, or they're, they may be bored out of their minds and very uninterested in school because it's just so far beneath them, it's not even funny. So she went from weirdo to, she finished elementary school by age 5, middle school by age 6, and high school by age 8, once they figured out that they needed to just give her more of a challenging thing. And as of 2019, I know she was in the process of earning 2 degrees online, one in industrial engineering and in mathematics and one in systems engineering. So anyway, there's just, these people are everywhere, and their capabilities start to give you a glimpse of how easy it would be to do technology, whether it was ancient technology or, the pyramids or any of this stuff. If you've got brains like this, what could you have done? So next one, Jeremy Schuler. He's a math prodigy. And there's a lot of math prodigies. You probably heard a lot of people graduating young and all that. But again, this one interested me because in addition to the math, it was language acquisition. So his mother first noticed that he was unusually advanced because at 17 months, he saw her writing an email, and she was writing in Hangul, which is the Korean alphabet, and he was curious. So she showed him the vowels and made the sounds and everything and consonants. And she said the next day she found him just reading Hangul. Just next day is 17 months. So then once he realized the English syllables worked the same way, he almost immediately taught himself to read English. So yeah, this is crazy. Now, he's a prodigy. And again, a prodigy is different from an autistic savant because there's no compromising of anything else. Like an autistic person is going to have typically some kind of deficit somewhere. Not necessarily that they can't put their own clothes on, but there may be something pretty significant in their ability to function in life. Whereas a prodigy is just, they've got abilities that somebody else would have had to take years of study to master, say, that instrument or that subject. They just got it very easily out of the gate. So his parents were both aerospace engineers, so apparently that was just getting passed on. All right, next one. The question is, are you a savant? And I found this very, very interesting to look into Bunch of examples on that. We'll go to the next one. Alan Morgan. This is again language, but he had a stroke when he was 81 years old. And when he woke up, he could only speak not just in a foreign accent, because you probably heard of foreign accent syndrome, where people just wake up and they got an accent all of a sudden. This is not the case. So he was, in World War II, he was evacuated to Wales. And so he was there temporarily. The online sources, whether it's articles in the newspapers or the medical journals, they differ. So whether it was a few months or 4 years, at max he was, in Wales for 4 years. So he had the language around him, but it wasn't like his parents were speaking it or anything. So at age 10, he goes back to England, spends the next 70 years in England, has his stroke, wakes up not speaking English anymore, but speaking Welsh, and his wife had to, to translate to the doctors, back and forth for him. So this was complete substitution of a full language. I mean, again, the fact that your brain how much they always say is taking in, trillions of bits of information per second, which, by the way, they say that women's intuition is actually better than men's. They've chronicled this. And they say the reason why is because of all those trillions of bits of information coming at us, women have a slightly better ability to access those. So that gut instinct is scientific. Doesn't mean you necessarily are better than your spouse, but it is documented. There's been many instances, though, where that gut instinct is honed or refined. I remember reading about a fire chief. His team was in the house, and all of a sudden he's like, "Out! Everybody out now!" And no sooner had they cleared that doorway than the entire first floor of the house caved in, and they would have all been in the burning basement. And they asked him afterwards, "How did you know?" And he says, "There's just." Again, he was able to access, that's time and practice, but it's still accessing that stuff that's coming at you, all that information that you just normally aren't registering. All right, next one, acquired savant. Again, what abilities are in there that we don't know about? Well, Orlando Sorrell is a really good example of it, because at age 10, he got struck in the head by a baseball, and after the headaches went away, he could remember the weather, where he was, and everything he was doing since then. And more interestingly, he could calendar calculate. So that means if you ask somebody, well, what day of the week was January 16th, 1912, they're going to say Sunday or whatever, or, what day of the week is February 16th, 697, and they're just going to tell you. They just know it. They don't have to stop there and think about it. They just know it. It's just calendar calculating instantly. So I don't recommend you try getting hit in the head to accomplish any of these things, but it does make you wonder. Next one is Jason Padgett. And I had the privilege of talking to him live on a phone. I was in the middle of presenting in Texas this presentation, and his sister-in-law, I think it was, and brother, they were in the audience, and they got him on the phone, and I actually got to talk to him. Amazing man. He was beat up one night and ended up with a severe concussion, and it did throw him for a loop. It was a few years of really finding it difficult to go out and about and be with people. There was light sensitivity. There was some different issues from it. And the fluidity of movement, like if somebody moves, or like a train or a car, or you're watching somebody, that fluidity of movement wasn't any longer there. So like if you've ever looked at one of those books where you flip through it and it like pretends to move because you're flipping through quickly, it was kind of like that is what happened to him. It became staccato frames, but what was happening is he was now seeing, in addition to that, it was like God had stripped off the fluidity of movement and replaced it with not just the staccato elements of it, but the geography and the calculus, the undergird movement and vision and all of that stuff. He now was seeing this, but he didn't have a language, he didn't have a way to explain it to people. So let's go to the next one. he was drawing things like this, in the, I don't know if he was in the mall or I think it was at the mall. And this physicist walked by and saw him drawing this stuff, and he's like, you're like trying to talk about space and time and the discrete structure of the universe by doing it in pictures. Have you ever thought about taking a math class? And now he'd been a party-going, girl-chasing, beer-drinking, happy-go-lucky guy, had never had any interest in this stuff before, but he decided, I'm going to do it. So he went back to college and discovered that geometry and calculus was now, that was what he was seeing and understanding intuitively now. So that bop on the head really, I saw an interview between him and Dr. Daryl Treffert, and the level of intelligence, you're just like, holy cow. It was just fascinating to, way above, like, way up the food totem pole from us. So yeah, fascinating. A couple of more pictures, just so you can see that one. And then, and by the way, an MRI shows he is using areas of the brains that we don't normally have access to. I mean, it's not fully true that when somebody says, well, we only use 10% of our brain and the other 90%, that's not exactly an accurate way to frame things, but the MRI did show him using the brain in ways that we don't. So anyway, the next one, yes, that one. In fact, I found it interesting. He's not a Christian, as far as I can tell from everything I've seen and interacted with him. And neither is Dr. Daryl Treffert, like I said, leading world's authority on savants and prodigies and all that. And yet both of them said basically the same thing. In this case, the example is Jason said, I have a 2-year-old daughter. 2-month-old daughter, and he says, when I move my finger in front of her eyes and she's tracking it, he said that, is actually an equation, a very significant, serious equation, and yet she's doing calculus straight out of the gate. We come factory loaded. Both him and Dr. Daryl Treffert said, we come factory loaded with this. Advanced levels of calculus, but we're doing it so naturally, we don't realize we're doing it. So at a minimum, we're coming with a high level of calculus. I'm not going to bother to read the next two quotes really, but that's basically what both of them said. We come with all sorts of software factory installed. That was their way of putting it. So it's funny, some of the people will say, oh, well, autistic people, they have abilities because their brain gets washed with certain chemicals in the womb, and it compromises their normal abilities, but it gives them these extra ones and stuff. And if you live on, and it's not just because this chemical stuff. So anyway, let's go on to the $1 million question that you have to answer. Is we have this now, all right? We have this in 2026. We would definitely say we're coming factory loaded with this stuff. But the question is, evolution wants to say that mistake after mistake after mutation after mutation after mutation after mutation, we accidentally got to the point where this brilliant, where our brains have, like every cell is loaded with all this complex DNA, and our brains are just like a mini universe. Is it from mistake after mistake after mistake, or has mutation after mutation been slowly causing us to lose what we had before? These people have abilities. They have to have come from somewhere. And if some of them are getting hit in the head and it's turning them on, what were we capable if you reverse engineer back into the fossil record, what would a Genesis person be like? I think it just makes more sense to say we've been getting dumber, shorter, and uglier. It's just, we're not going uphill, we're going downhill. Okay, so another one, not terribly fond of this guy because he thinks he's all that. He's definitely got a little bit of a, I'm all that attitude. But Derek Amato is another one of those where he's an acquired savant. He played the guitar in high school, but he'd never played the piano, and he said that after 5 days after hitting his head on the bottom of the pool because they were playing football and he dove in after it, he was a mess for like 5 days. Headache, it was bad. But afterwards, he sat down. Well, he describes it as if you're seeing black and white rectangles just going across from left to right, and he just plays what he sees. He can't play it all, but he plays as much of it as he can manage to get to. But let's go to the next slide and play a little bit of what this is the song. You'll hear the song that he sat down and played.
I had never touched a piano. I was a regular kid. I played baseball and chased girls, like boys do. I dove into a swimming pool 9.5 years ago to catch a football, and I hit my head in the shallow end of the pool. Basically, when I got back from the hospital, I slept for 5 days. On the 5th day, I woke up, and that's when I walked up to the piano. It was dusty. I knew nothing of it, how to play it, and I was just hoping to hit a couple notes, and that's when my hands just kind of went crazy, and I was playing fluid. It was instant. There was no building up or rehearsing or practicing. I don't even remember being really shocked. I was just kind of like something profound was happening.
I don't know where the music comes from. I can tell you that Derek couldn't do it before. And it's amazing, it really is. It brings tears to people's eyes.
So, yeah, pretty cool the things that people can do. In fact, they're doing experiments with magnets. I haven't seen an update on it. This was a few years ago. Was it Australia or where they were using giant magnets to try to turn off some areas of the brain to allow the other areas to turn on. And they're trying to mimic, this. I don't know how well they succeeded at it, but one thing, let's go on to the next one. One thing that happened is a lightning strike. So instead of getting hit on the head, similar issue, a practicing orthopedic surgeon, at age 42, he was struck by lightning. He was in a phone booth, and he had just hung up. Anyway, he had several weeks of memory loss and sluggishness that he had to get back to normal. But after that, he had basically an insatiable desire to listen to piano music, whereas he had no previous interest. And then he learned he taught himself to play music within 3 months. So it wasn't instantaneous like Derek was, but he found himself just obsessive compulsive. Like I want to play this music. In fact, he's produced, he's composed, a bunch of music. So anyway, it just seemed to flood his soul. He didn't know where it came from, but he just wanted to be able to get it out there. And so that's why he taught himself to do music. All right, so next one. I thought this was interesting. Alan Snyder he's a neuroscientist, gave 28 volunteers a puzzle that had stumped subjects for 50 years. Okay, so for 50 years, nobody could solve this. So he gives these 28 volunteers the same puzzle, but this time he gives them, basically shocks them. He gives them transcranial direct current stimulation. More than 40% of them could solve the puzzle, rather than the control group that was not given it. So anyway, there's there are things that could stimulate our brains, but I don't know if they'll ever figure out how to do that exactly. Let's go on to the next one. Alonzo Clemens was an acquired savant in art. He let's see, is that this is a video. Play this one.
Alonzo Clemens is able to work part-time. Do you like your job at the Y?
Yeah, pick trash.
But a childhood accident left him with a traumatic brain injury. He can't read or write or do math.
This is your studio, as it were.
And yet, astonishingly, he can do this.
When did you make him?
On the weekend.
This past weekend?
Yeah.
As naturally as the rest of us breathe, Alonzo can sculpt. His meticulous creations fill his Boulder, Colorado apartment. He's made hundreds of them, all with his bare hands.
When you make an animal, what are you thinking about?
Run around the pasture.
You can see it running in the pasture?
Yeah.
This is the clay.
Yeah.
And this is how you start every piece.
Yeah.
He can't explain how he does it,
What are you going to make?
Horse.
but he loves to show you how.
You just use your fingers.
Yeah.
We watched him work out every detail, from the mane to the muscles, all with apparent ease.
Is Alonzo a savant?
Yes, no question.
That's Dr. Darrell Trefford.
Hi.
Psychiatrist Daryl Trefford is research director at the Trefford Center in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin,
This is the largest planet, Jupiter.
and is a leading expert on savants of all ages.
67 satellites.
Savant syndrome is a rare but remarkable condition in which someone with a disability has a striking ability that stands in stark contrast to overall handicap.
Dr. Trefford says Alonzo is what's called an acquired savant. It's believed that his head injury somehow rewired his brain,
He's coming along, isn't he?
damaging cognitive abilities, but freeing up extraordinary artistic gifts.
That took you 15 minutes at most. I could take 15 years and I couldn't do that. Do you think Alonzo would be making horses today if he'd never had that accident?
Probably not.
So, again, what's happening is all that detail, like if you watched a horse running through the pasture, you're going to remember that it had 4 legs, a tail, and a head, but you're probably not going to be able to mimic that detail in motion or to capture it. He's registering all the detail and accessing all the detail. So you're registering it, you're just not accessing it. So, but again, if what could we have done if we had these types of abilities in the ancient world? All right, so just an example, just really cool stuff that he's got. All right, let's go to Stephen Wiltshire. He's the other art savant. He was mute until age 5. His first word was paper, by the way. And he draws entire cities from memory after a brief helicopter ride. I mean, you literally can fly him over any city in the world, and he's going to sit down and draw it right down to the correct number of columns in the Pantheon in Rome. So you put him in front of a 30-foot canvas, and off he goes. So let's go to the next one and play that.
I'm Stephen Wiltshire. I do drawings.
Stephen is an artist who creates incredibly intricate drawings of cityscapes.
I love drawing tall buildings, tall skyscrapers, skylines, street scenes.
And he does this entirely from memory.
Keep going so it goes a little bit longer.
When Stephen was 3, he was diagnosed as autistic. He was completely mute and lived entirely in his own world. Early on, Stephen's teachers noticed he loved to draw. He had found his way to connect with others. Stephen has the ability to look at a subject once and then draw an accurate and detailed picture of it, including panoramas of entire cities based off just a quick look.
I go up on a helicopter and then memorize it, and then after being on a helicopter and then straight back at the hotel and then start to draw.
His incredible talent launched an artistic career that has taken him around the world.
Los Angeles, Dubai, Houston, Texas, and Tokyo in Japan.
And that's just to name a few.
New York's my favorite. Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, and there are lots of yellow New York taxi cabs.
And Stephen has no plans of stopping anytime.
I would love to see this guy. That's one of my goals, is to see this guy in motion. Anyway, all right, next one. Rubik's Cube world record holder blindfolded. Now, I'm ashamed to admit I cannot solve a Rubik's Cube with my eyes open. I don't know how people do that. I don't understand. My brain doesn't work like that. So the idea of looking at it for a few seconds and then being able to solve it from memory just boggles my mind. So let's play that. So not only do they use a blindfold, but they put the paper in there between them to make sure you can see this. And it's probably faster by now. There's probably a more updated version. But it's just, again, the mind and its ability. It makes me think of Nikola Tesla, if you've ever heard of him. He, at one point, designed this machine in his head and then ran it, testing where the friction points would be, and solved and eliminated those friction points before he ever built the machine. Like, there's just the way our brains are potentially capable of functioning is outrageous. So let's go to the next one. What about physical abilities? Well, Isomaki, he holds 5 world records in sword skills, and this is one of them.
This is the size of the pellet Machi-san would try to slice with his sword.
I honestly don't believe I could cut this if it was stationary on a chopping block with a chef knife. He's going to do it while it's flying through the air with a samurai sword.
Not only is the pellet tiny, over 4,000 times smaller than a baseball, but when it leaves the barrel of the BB gun, it's traveling over 200 miles per hour. A normal person would have no chance of seeing the pellet. So we're using a slow motion camera to slow the action down by 250 times. And helping me is Dr. Ramani Durvasula.
Okay, we're ready, Kay.
Kay is going to fire the pellet at Machi-san from a distance of 70 feet.
I heard it, but I didn't see it. I saw a flash. The blade went by. All right, we're going to play back. We're going to play back.
Using the slow motion camera, I want to see if Machi-san has achieved the superhuman.
Oh, man. Wow. Oh, you can see the piece go one way and the other one go that way. Oh, that was amazing.
But how does Dr. Ramani explain what she's just witnessed?
This is about processing at an entirely different sensory level because he's not visually processing. This is a different level of anticipatory processing, something so procedural, something so fluid for him.
A normal person would take 0.3 of a second just to register the sound of the gun being fired before they can even start to think about reacting. By the time they move the sword into position, the pellet would have traveled past them.
I think, yep, this is the one. You can see the little nick in it.
I think she doesn't even believe that it can be sight, that he's seeing it and registering it that fast, but I suspect that he is, and that it's not just a procedural, I guess. I don't think that's a good explanation of that. And there are accounts of various people through the centuries. There's one about the time of Christ. I don't know if it was on one side or the other, but right around that time period. There was a guy that was able to see way out into the heart. He could see the ships coming before the sentries that watched for the enemy ships approaching. His ancient historian, documented him. So, eyesight. I mean, when you again back it up, reverse engineer what it would have been like, it's probably pretty phenomenal. Personally, I suspect that when we get to heaven, we will perhaps even be able to see farther into the electromagnetic spectrum. Some of the things that are invisible to us now, I believe that, like certain things in space, I believe we'll be able to see some of that stuff. We'll have to wait and see on that, but anyway, I'm going to end with a couple last ones on music just because I thought it was so entertaining. So this next little boy, if you could show him.
收拾心情，好激昂㗎，好激昂嘅，知唔知啊？每一下要撞爛啲石頭。
4 years old? 4? All right, the last one, Amira Wilhelmhagen, if you can play that one. I just like watching the facial expressions of the people in the audience. But the next guy she sings with, she's so impressed with him that she almost forgets to come in.
Sta in fronte a te, sta in fronte a te. Mannato sole, io bello in te, sole mio, sta in fronte a te.
That's hilarious. So one last slide here. You know, this is not just a bunch of fun facts. This tells you that God is very lavish with the abilities that he gave us. And if we had never sinned, we would have done all the things that we love to do, whether it's mosaic tile or architecture or leatherworking, woodwork. It doesn't matter. All the things that we love to do, we would have enjoyed this beautiful planet without death or sin and with all these amazing abilities. That was what he created for us. So the other thing is I wanted to bring up is you've probably, felt sick, and you're not rocking all cylinders. You're just laying there. You just don't even feel like doing anything. That is partly what happens to us. Like, let me give you an example. I deal with evolutionists all the time, and they're very, very intelligent. There's nothing wrong with their logic, but their conscience is seared in a way that prevents them from being able to see any other side of the spectrum or the picture than what they're seeing. And what we're about to go through in world history is something unlike we've ever seen. We're ramping up towards the end times. And you're going to need every advantage you get. You're going to need to be able to perceive what's going on. Why is this happening? Why is this nation doing this? And what does prophecy say about that? You can have all the logic and all the smarts in the world, and yet be distracted by the kids' soccer schedule and whatever. It's not like preserving your health is only so I don't get cancer or so that I feel better and, don't have to take some medication or something. Preserving your health clarifies your mind. It helps you to be able to perceive the things that you're going to need to be able to do as we go through these end times. It's about to get crazy. I mean, you think it's crazy now. It's about to get crazier. At some point, you're going to need every facility you have, or faculty, I should say, that you have brain-wise, to perceive spiritual things. And caring for your bodies is how you care for your mind. Just like when you're sick and you just can't think that clearly, it's sort of the same way, but on a slightly subdued level. You may feel fine, you're walking around, but you ever feel really good? Remember what it's like to feel really good? I mean, just awesome. Your brain works at the best possible way at that point. So strive for that. Strive for the best your physical body can do, and strive for the best your mental and spiritual faculties can do. And by all means, start looking into some of these things, because all those worlds are going to combine very shortly. So anyway, if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer anything that came up during this. Yeah.
So I suppose throughout eternity, when a new kingdom comes, we're going to have the brain like these savants and be able to...
Oh, yeah.
In the upcoming life.
Yes. So the presentation previous to this is on how tall and strong we were. And when you get that full picture, I think I resonate most clearly with, C.S. Lewis. He said this quote where basically, if you could see a glimpse of what you're going to be like at some point, you'd be tempted to worship you. And I get it. I get it. I mean, after you start piecing this together, I mean, we're just amazing.
How can we see the rest of your lessons?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to come out and do more of them. I don't have them all online yet. By the end of this year, I will have a lot of this available online, but all of it right now is I've only done it privately at various groups. But there's probably some of this on YouTube and various places. But again, those 52 booklets, those 52 presentations, like all the presentations, I can't possibly go into everything in these presentations. There's a lot more that I go into in the booklets. The booklets are designed to be very visual, easy to read, and fun, heavily graphicked, fully supported by, So those are going to be, like 30 to 60 pages typically. Some of them are done, some are in various stages, but by the end of this year, I aim to have all of those done. And at that point, I will start doing them all online, so that people can access things. But, yeah.
What are some of the ways that you are enjoying or finding helpful to take care of your mind and your body right now?
Well, for me, I find that not eating late at night and not eating certain things, all your bodies are a little bit different. Me, I'm very sensitive to sugar. I've always been that way. I mean, what my husband could eat, I mean, I'd end up sick in several hours if I ate that amount of sugar. So I've always very much avoided sugar and dairy because I can't breathe. I got a small nose, can't breathe at night with dairy. So for me, I'm very particular to try to avoid it as much as possible. I don't do meat. I just feel so much better when I do that. And I don't eat late at night because your body, I found this chart absolutely fascinating. But if you looked at a chart from like 6 a.m. to about 9 p.m., between 6 and 10 a.m., your body, the line goes almost vertical. Your body's needs metabolically just skyrocket. It's been fasting all night and it needs fuel. From about 10 a.m. to about 4 p.m., it's not horizontal, but it goes down just a little bit. And then after 4 p.m., it just plummets. And so if you eat after 4 p.m., your body's going like, I don't know what you expect me to do with this, but I'm gearing down for bedtime, and I'm planning on replenishing and fixing and healing and doing all the things that I need to do in your brain and your digestive tract. And so it doesn't want food after 4 p.m., and your mind is clearer, your body functions better when you do that. I know that's the ideal. I know that's hard for some people's schedules to do, but it really does. In fact, they did a study where they gave people the same food, same amount, same food, but they gave the one group it for breakfast early on, and the other group had it later in the day. And the people that had it for breakfast either stayed the same or lost weight. The people that ate it late in the day, they gained weight. So it pays to learn how your body functions and to live in harmony with it as best as you can. You don't have to do it overnight. You don't have to become a vegan and obsessive compulsive. I did that. I went straight vegan. Had no idea what I was doing when I was in college. Attended a health lecture. I thought that everything that you stuck in your body, because I grew up completely ignorant about the body. And I ate meat and everything possible. I would snot and sneeze through a cold for a couple of weeks, get over it for a week and a half, start in with another one. I carried a Kleenex box with me to college in my backpack. I was a mess. And I went to a health lecture, and I'm like, you mean that everything you put in your body actually helps or hurts it? That was like a totally new concept to me. So when I figured that out, I did what they seemed to be indicating, which was, no meat and dairy and sugar and all that stuff. And so I had no idea what I was doing, but I just did it. And through the years, I've gotten so that I'm a much more balanced version of that. Like, I eat at home, non-dairy and no meat. But, like, if I'm, out at somebody's house, I'm not going to ask whether there's butter in the peas. You know what I mean? At a restaurant, you do the best you can. You don't have to freak out about this stuff, but try to do something each day. Like, whether this week you drink more water and less soda, or whatever. Find something on YouTube to watch that will, encourage you about stretching, or, reasons or ways to work out. As we age, we lose muscle mass, and there's things you can do just sitting in a chair. I mean, get out a can of beans in each hand if you have to. You don't have to have weights. Do something to improve your health, the body that you were gifted with, the mind you were gifted with. Just do something each day. All right.
One more
Yeah.
question. So you do a lot of studying. What are you studying now currently? I know you're putting these presentations together on Lost World Museum, but are you studying anything specifically that's of interest to you right now?
You would be appalled if you saw how many tabs I've got open on Safari, how many internet browser tabs I've got open. I tend to have so many things I'm studying at the same time because I'm filling in so many parts of history, and I have a hard time, you get on there looking up for one thing, you get online just for one thing, and then you end up down a million rabbit holes. But right now I'm filling in the post-flood world, the Ice Age, the underwater cities, and a lot of that section, because I'm writing, I want to flesh those booklets out. I've got a lot on government, the rise of government, and prophecy, Babylon, Rome, the fourth beast. I got all kinds of things. I got a chance last year to go to Rome and film all the different things that you've heard about through history, the famous events where, like, Martin Luther was going up those stairs on his knees when he heard the voice say, "The just shall live by faith." I got a chance to go up those stairs on my knees, so I've got like a boatload of videos and stuff that I'll be sharing at some point this year. I got so many subjects, it's not funny. And also, because my husband passed away in November, I am trying to feed that platform, Lost World Museum. So that means, like, his platform was more focused on geology and creationism, and it was a little bit more narrow of a focus, whereas mine was that complete sweep through history from a biblical standpoint. So I'm trying to feed that platform. So for right now, I'm spending a lot of time on creation things and stuff like that. So giants, savants, and prodigies, I'm putting out stuff like that. As this year goes on, though, and I can expand that platform into more of what I want to do, you're going to see all of these topics. So they're on Facebook and YouTube. If you like this type of stuff and you want to, or if you want to just evangelize, the world's easiest form of evangelism. I'm not kidding. You don't have to stand on a corner with a sign, Jesus loves you. All you have to do is watch these videos that I put out. They've been typically 90 seconds to 2 minutes. I'm expanding them a little bit longer because Facebook is now trying to prefer the little bit longer videos. So you'll see them become a little bit longer. But if you watch one of my videos to its end, it not only pays me, but it tells the algorithms, people like this, push this out to other people. So literally, with just watching it or giving a thumbs up or a smiley face or commenting afterwards, it tells the algorithms to put it out to more people. It's, honest to goodness, the easiest way to evangelize on the planet. So, whereas if you get off it with it in a few seconds, it tells the algorithms it's not interesting, don't. So anyway, There are very, very harsh, rabid people online, and they take me up one side and down the other. They are barbaric and brutal in their comments. And I find most Christians are chickens. Absolute chickens. Won't raise their hand and say, oh, I like the video. I thought it made sense. It agrees with Genesis. Anything. They will almost exclusively not say, you'll watch it, but you won't say anything. Not trying to condemn anybody, but we got to find a voice. So if we want to be useful in this kingdom, those are some of the ways. Watch the videos, thumbs up, smiley face, something, or comment, and do your part. Any other comments or questions?
Righteous are as bold as a lion.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Righteous are as bold as a lion. You gotta do that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time to keep our mouth shut, and there's a time to say something, But we try to be John and my policy have always been to welcome them. I mean, even if they don't agree with us, we have welcomed them on our platform. Apes, aliens, or Adam is our tagline, and we'll ask people what they believe, and they'll say but we've had people literally get on there and then tell us, I got on here to troll, but this is pretty interesting. And we've had people that were hardcore, rabid people start to ask us questions over time about Jesus. So it pays to keep your cool and to be kind. And have an opinion. You're welcome to it. You don't have to apologize for having an opinion. But, love them. Love them even if they don't agree with you. So, all right. Yes. Let's bow our heads. Father, thank you for the gifts you've given us mentally, physically, the talents, the hobbies and interests, the passions. We really underestimate exponentially, orders of magnitude underestimate what we were really like, what we were created by you to be like. And we appreciate the fact that you would bother with this one little planet and that you would someday offer us to be restored to that beautiful level. So we pray that you'll make us useful to your kingdom, interested in health, whether it's physical or mental, spiritual. Give us a path forward to a better version of ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you all for coming tonight. There are refreshments in the fellowship hall. And again, if you did not get a chance to watch Health Demic, we have cards for you for tonight. We'll see you out there.